We are officially into our corner with the Quad Para Association of South Africa. Good morning, Rustin. How are you?
Hello there. I'm well. I'm well.
I am so excited to have you. My name is Simfisile Mazibuko, and I always tell the listeners that I love this school because this is where actually listen. I talk a lot, but when it comes to this corner with the Quadpara Association of South Africa, I actually listen very attentively. You come with the information, you come with the vibes, and you come with the opportunities. So I'm here to, and so are the rest of the villagers. So Rustin, may I ask, and I'd like to welcome you again. Can you please
Mm.
share a little bit about your journey growing up with cerebral palsy and how it influenced your career path?
Okay, so the condition of cerebral palsy is not diagnosed until your formative years. So my parents never really knew that I had cerebral palsy until they discovered that my milestones were a bit delayed. So I went to a special school for persons with disabilities, where I was there till standard seven. That's the good old days where we used to call it standards, kind of giving my age away. And then, which was effectively grade nine. And then I went to what we called as persons with disabilities normal school. So I went to a mainstream public high school. I completed my matric there. And then I went from there to university. I was unsuccessful. I was a dropout. But what happened when I was at university? I started working for the university as well. So I got to learn about labor research. I published my first three books while I was the only three books I ever published. Actually, I was part of a project team that worked on the publication of books. I then went on to work within the disability sector. I started working out at Cape Mental Health Society here in Cape Town. Then moved on to cerebral palsy. Then started a company that where Altitude Workforce Solutions has specialized in blue collar working opportunities for persons with disabilities. And now I'm a consultant, where my motto is the economic empowerment of persons with disabilities in Africa. So I've got aspirations beyond the borders of South Africa, and I prove to businesses, let the ability of disability enable your profitability. So that's me, my cerebral palsy, and how it influenced my career path.
Wow. Can you please say that saying again for us? Let your
Yeah.
disability.
Okay. So it's let the ability of your disability enable profitability. That's my byline.
Oh, oh, I like it.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, I love it. My word, that's amazing. And what inspired you to focus on disability, economic empowerment, and skills development?
So, as I indicated, I went to school at Eros School, the school here in Cape Town, and we had friends. Now, I was always an English medium a student, pupil, that's what they called us in those days. And my friends were all Afrikaans speaking. So when I got to one of the protective workshops for the cerebral palsy called the Palms Work Center, I met my friends there. And the first time I met with them, now I was the manager. I was a newly appointed manager at this particular protective workshop called the Palms Work Center. And I went up to them and I said, "Hoe gaan het met julle?" And they responded, "Het gaan goed, meneer." And then I said to them, "Ek is nie meneer nie, ek is Rastam, julle vriend." And they said to me, "Ja, meneer." So I realized at that point in time, why is there such a huge divide? At the time, I was earning 3,000 Rand a month as the general manager of the organization, and they were earning 30 Rand a week, essentially 120 Rand a month. And at that point in time, I turned around and said, no, 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 this can't be. Surely there's a better place for us in terms of being of value to the economy. And that was my moment, that was my story where I decided on the economic empowerment of persons with disabilities in Africa was my mission in life.
Amazing. Oh, wow. Economic empowerment of people with disabilities in Africa. And this is where Skills Village Radio also wants to reach. We want to reach beyond the borders of South Africa and reach our African brothers and sisters and also the global community of persons with disabilities, showcasing the incredible abilities of people with disabilities in South Africa. So thank you so much. That is really inspiring. So why is sorry, why is skills development crucial for people with disabilities in South Africa?
Okay, so let me just maybe answer the initial question a bit differently.
Yes.
When I met my friends and they said this, the first thing that came to mind was, you can get better jobs. Consequently, I started a company called Altitude Skills Development as a founder there, and we gave jobs to that very people. The difference is that they earned the minimum wage at the time, so they went from that 120 rand an hour, where they started earning, I think it was 1,500 or 2,000 rand at the time. This was in 1997, so it's quite a bit of years ago. And for me, in fact, I remember in the company we were paying slightly higher than the entry level wage at the time. So I think that was important to me. But I realized as well I could only help so many people. So over my 10 years altitude, which was about I must do the calculation that I started in 1997 and I basically left in 2007, over a period of 10 years. I assisted 1,000 people with disabilities. Okay, and for me, what I needed to accelerate that 1,000, so I realized I needed to work on skills development. So that's how I got involved in the skills development regime. And going and knocking on doors, especially the government institutions, was not easy, right? It was very challenging for persons with disabilities to be recognized for your abilities. And then I thought, okay, fine. I need to, maybe going to use a contentious word here, but I need to infiltrate these government institutions because that's the only way we're going to become relevant. So I went to the services sector, and at the services sector, I was there for quite a few years as a
Mm.
stakeholder, right? Not as an employee, as a stakeholder in part of governance. And I started being the chair of the Western Cape Provincial Board. I actually went up all the way to being on the council of the services sector. And 5,000 learnerships later, at that point in time, I've been able to take that 1,000 that I did at altitude to now 5,000 rand, which I had essentially did through the services sector at that point in time. So I could demonstrate the value of skills development leading to employment. And in fact, up to today, I believe that learnerships is a crucial tool in terms of leveling the playing fields for persons with disabilities. And as I will outline a little later, companies have a compelling value proposition to engage with persons with disabilities because we actually make them more money. But later on in the interview, I'll expand on how that happens. So that's the reason why skills development I think is important.
Wow. I actually am inclined to agree 100% with you. Just sharing a little bit about myself, but I also have gone through some learnerships, and I did actually acquire many, many skills through those learnerships. And I did actually, like your mantra says, I was able to leverage the ability off of my disability to be economically independent. So I 100% agree with that notion that you just brought forward. And listeners, you are tuned into Skills Village Radio. You are listening to the Health and Awareness Show. And we are currently having an interview with Rustin from the Quadpara Association of South Africa. And he is giving us more information around skills development, the highest barriers of skills training for
Transport. It's not just for skills, it's for jobs as well. Um, Transport is a barrier because as soon as you say there's an opportunity for a person with a disability, specifically those of us that are wheelchair users, then it almost seems insurmountable for us to be able to take part within skills opportunities. The other barrier is the level of education that we may have received. We may have come from a learners with special education needs schools, maybe in terms of the intellectual disability side of things. So we don't have a grade 9. That then becomes an absolute barrier. And now that training has moved onto the Quality Council of Trades and Occupations, which we call the QCTO, there's almost no opportunity for somebody that does not have a grade 9 to enter into a program. Unfortunately, as well, QCTO is very new, so they don't have a lot of qualifications that is pegged at NQF1. That is a grade 9 equivalent, which means that even those learners that are potentially, who have grade 9, for example, they disadvantaged as well. So that is definitely a downside. A couple of them, the other downside is that when you go into a program and you're one of the only persons with disabilities in that program, there is a certain degree of challenge that you get with regard to dealing with your peers in that environment. You may have a situation where the facilities are not accessible, and I must say accessible for us wheelchairs, we know what it's all about, but accessibility goes to other disabilities as well. Take, for example, somebody who is hearing impaired. How does the classroom setup manage help the hearing impaired? Take somebody who is visually impaired. How do you make you get universal design in terms of that person who is visually impaired? So there's a lot of sensitization that needs to happen. From time to time, me myself, I get invited to meetings that's upstairs. I refuse to attend those meetings just as a matter of principle. So there's still a lot of sensitivity that is required. However, on the plus side, I must say there's a lot of barriers that's been broken down in that regard. People are more aware. They when they hear my name, then say, "Oh no, we must make sure that the Rastam can get into the building," which is a good thing. And it's because I dug my heels in. I said, "No, you're not carrying me up the stairs." So I did not accommodate the situation. They needed to accommodate me. So that is my view and my approach.
I love this. Oh my gosh. I am so what's the word, in awe of you, of all of the things that you are saying. Skills Village Radio is a 90% owned and operated by people with disabilities radio station, and I love everything you are saying because it resonates not only with our fans, but it resonates with us as an organization because all of what you have mentioned is what Skills Village Radio stands for. We do say often that we will not accommodate the situation. The situation is supposed to accommodate us. And I love how you have mentioned different types of disabilities, mobility, visual impairment, hearing impairment. I'm really in awe of everything that you've done, especially with that last anecdote where you said you dug your heels in and you refused to be carried up the stairs. Because essentially, more than principle, I believe it is about autonomy and asserting your independence over your own life as a person with a disability. So I really, really would like to commend you and thank you for that, pushing that forward for us as people with disabilities. I would also
So
like to
before
ask,
you continue, can I turn the tables
yes,
on you for a minute
sure, no
and
problem.
actually commend Skills Village Radio for what you guys have done. I've been around in the disability world for quite a while now, and I've never heard of such a refreshing, wonderful, lovely. I'm at a loss for words to describe it. That here is a disability-owned initiative that is making this difference. So I just want to maybe expand on another side of my life. So I remember I said that I was very in portfolio committee, not for the disabled, but I'm also a director at the Association for Skills Development in South Africa, which is a professional body of persons that is involved in skills development. So it's from your skills development facilitator to your, I would call it almost like a gramophone, but a voice piece of looking for the disabled. And if I can broadcast the message, absolutely.
A beautiful rant,
Yeah.
in itself. Thank you so much. Thank you for seeing what Skills Village is about. And thank you also for allowing yourself to collaborate with us. In the beginning of the show, before our interview started, I was actually saying that this is my favorite part of the show because this is the part where I sit down and listen. I'm very talkative. So I actually asked the listeners, what can we name this, this segment of the show? And I put down a name. I called it the Manzezulu Shut Up and Listen Corner because this is literally the only time I listen. I take my time to listen. I absorb the information. But I left it up to the listeners to name our segment here with the Quad-Para Association of South Africa. But I'm hoping that now there is a reason people can hear the reason why I call it that because I am so in awe of the guests that we have every week. You are doing amazing work, and thank you so much again for collaborating with Skills Village Radio. So my next question is: how can businesses and training institutions be more inclusive in their training programs?
Okay. So I must just give you a bit of backdrop to that. And I know we may be touching on questions you're going to ask me later on, but I think it's
Yes.
important to answer it at this point. Companies are driven by the Employment Equity Act, and we now have in place something called the Employment Equity Amendment Act. So there's a percentage that companies have to achieve. It's 2% of their workforce has to be persons with disabilities. And from that perspective, they now are actively engaged and looking for candidates. That's the one side. The other side is that broad-based Black economic empowerment, there are disability-specific points that is available for companies. You can earn directly 6 points by just employing persons with disabilities. You can earn 5 points if you're going to support organizations about persons with disabilities. And you can earn up to 50 points, 50% of your entire triple BEE scorecard can be earned with disability. So when we try and do recruitment on programs, and I've done over 7,000 learners already, we struggle. We struggle to find persons with disabilities. And as I said earlier, one of the biggest challenges is the education level. But within that field, it's very difficult to find persons with disabilities. So when you ask about inclusivity, companies are very, very inclusive because the financial and business case for them to engage with disability is paramount now. So the opportunities is definitely there. What we recommend is when they do run disability programs, look at running disability programs that is maybe either 100% focused or has many persons with disabilities in it. That is a better way for businesses to run the process. Remain inclusive because that's also, I think, what is important. And it's important to ensure that they are very clear in terms of that business case. So yes, it's all about the points, but if you can absorb a learner with a disability, you get more points. right? And many people talk about permanent employment. It's very difficult to get permanent employment in South Africa today. Our unemployment rate is way too high. We're touching on, I think, 32% or thereabouts. So it's quite
Mm.
high. So you look at a lot of fixed term contract type of positions, learnerships. You yourself said you want learnerships. I believe that there's going to come a point in time in your life that you may have done learnership one, learnership two, learnership three, that you are so valuable to the company that you're doing your final learnership with that they
Mm.
cannot afford to let you go.
To lose
You
you,
know,
yes.
that's essentially how it works. So I think it is happening. It's happening very positively that businesses and training institutions are actually becoming more inclusive in their training programs. However, there's a caveat: a lot more can be done.
A lot more can be done. Um, So again, like the numbers that I'm hearing coming from you, whopping 7,000 learners with
Mm.
disabilities that you have worked with. Could you tell us what have been some of the biggest successes and challenges while working with these incredible people?
Yeah. So I think I had this philosophy of zero. So let me tell you what my philosophy of zero has been about. I needed to start with the first person, which I did. Right. His name is late now. His name was Ronald Henry. He's a very special friend of mine. And I said to him, "Come and work with me." I got my employer, which was a disability organization at the time, to basically put him on the payroll. This was many, many, many moons ago. Since then, I added a zero to make it 10. I added a zero to make it 100. I added a zero to make it 1,000. And now I'm very, very close to getting to the 10,000. Things are ramping up. And I'm hoping by God's grace that He can give me the ability to be able to make it to 100,000. Right. So I think for me that is my goal, my ultimate goal in life, in order to touch 100,000 people when it comes to skills development. Some of the success stories that I've had, I've done big programs, the National Skills Fund. Remember, they gave one of my clients, Epilepsy South Africa, the Western Cape branch. They had about 500 learners that were allocated. I did about 500 learnership programs that was allocated by the services sector at the time. The brand that they allocated it to was CIA Skills Institute. Two projects of that nature, those were big. And one of them was very exciting. They started out by training the people on a skills program that focused on youth integration. They went. They then went on to put him onto a 12-month learnership. I think it was commercial cleaning at the time, and then they put him onto an internship after that. So they never got a year-long intervention. I think it was 18 months or 21 months. That was the intervention. That for me were the big numbers. But the small numbers that makes a difference is that somebody will come up to me and say to me, "Hello, Rustam, and I'm bad with names, and I'm even worse with faces." And I'd say, "Hi, good, nice to meet you," and whatever. And I said, "But we were on one of the programs, and we saw you then. We saw what you did." And I'd say, "Gee, I mean, talking about it's making the hair rise on my body, just
Mm,
to think about, that is by God's grace what he is showing me as a reward.
mm,
Yeah. So that for me is some of the successes that I've had. The challenges, um, I don't see the challenges as a negative. I see the challenges as a positive. So I've got this motto that I live by falling forward. As a person with cerebral palsy, I've got spastic diplegia. At one stage, I used to walk and I used to run, but we used to fall a lot, right? But I remember very specifically, we always fell forward. And even today, I don't really walk much at all, actually. So I don't fall anymore. Thank God I don't do that. If I get chucked out of my wheelchair once a year, then it's a lot. But I'm always falling forward. I'm
mm,
now, I go into a situation, I have the challenges, it's an experience, and I'm finding myself uh, flat on the ground because, that's what life has dealt me at that point in time.
Mm,
And as I
mm,
was younger, we used to jump up. We were in absolute pain because we hurt ourselves. But I'd brush off my hands, my knees, and my elbows, and I'd go on as if nothing had happened. So my challenges have actually been the best learning experiences that I've had in life, and there were quite a few, and I think I've mentioned some of them today, that I could get people to acknowledge, listen, you're not carrying me up the stairs, right? And then they make the reasonable accommodations after that. There have been other challenges of people just completely ignoring the disabled, and gee whiz, I go into beast mode when that happens. I
mm.
don't think it's appropriate to repeat the type of experiences that I've had when I go into beast mode, but I just don't allow people to walk over us. Absolutely not.
And thank you for that. Thank you for that. And listeners, I hope you heard the goal of Rustin is 100,000. So let's help him reach 100,000. Let the village gather and help Rustin and the Quadpara Association to reach 100,000. And I know there are more than 100,000 of us. Globally, there's
Mm,
1.3 million of us. I think currently in South Africa, please do correct me if I'm wrong, I think there are 17% of us with disabilities. I'm not quite sure about that figure. Please do
mm,
correct me if I'm wrong. But 100,000 is definitely achievable. So let's do it, villagers. Let's
mm,
help Rustin reach that extra
mm,
zero. I love Oh, I love it. I love it so
mm,
much. So we have spoken about the impact of learnerships on the economy and employment opportunities. Can you please explain to us how triple BEE, Black-based economic empowerment, can be used to enhance the employment of persons with disabilities? Though I do think we did touch on this
yeah,
slightly when we
yeah,
spoke about how the points for organizations increase and that a whopping 50%, 50
yeah,
points, people,
yeah.
um, can be covered by people with disabilities. So again, the motto that Rustin has that he told us about at the beginning of the interview cannot ring truer. Use your abilities from your disability to empower yourself because 50% is a pass. It's it,
Mm.
it's a
Absolutely.
huge pass.
Mm,
Yes, so definitely. Thank you so
mm.
much for that. And then I also wanted to ask, what advice do you have for businesses looking to employ or to implement inclusive employment strategies?
So I tell them something very simple, right? I say to them, I don't talk to them about disability because as soon as you mention the word disability, it becomes a handout, and unfortunately with
Mm,
handouts, it happens at that point. They maybe give you a little bit of something in your hand and that's it. So I'd never ever talk about disability. What I say to them is, do you want to make money? That's what I say to them. Do you want to
mm,
decrease?
mm,
Do you want to decrease the hourly wage rate? And I
mm,
say to them, I can decrease the cost of labor down to zero. Right? They look at me
mm,
funny and they say to me, how can I basically reduce my wage rate down to zero? And then I say to them, oh, by the way, you can then have your complete triple B double E, that 50 points that I just described to you now, can
mm,
actually be Mahala as well. It's
mm,
completely cost free, and it's a problem for big companies because triple B double E is a enigma, right? Especially
mm,
around the news. If you want to talk a little bit of politics about Trump and Musk, there's a
mm,
big criticism of South Africa with regard to our laws.
mm,
And here's an opportunity for them to be able to come and apply it. And then I say, allow a little pause. And I then say to her, oh, by the way, you're going to achieve this by working with the disabled. So
mm,
now they're not engaging the disabled because it's a feel good, we want to contribute and all of that. I'm saying to you, you want to
mm,
make these points, you need the disabled. The question is completely turned around. And then they say to us,
mm,
tell us what we need to do. Because in their minds,
mm,
it's bottom line. right? It's their
Yeah.
bottom line that's going to be impacted. And then whatever it is that I say about disability, oh, you need to do reasonable accommodation, and oh, you need assistive devices, and oh, you need this and that.
Mm,
No, don't worry us about that. You know, I already got them solved. And
mm,
that is what I find businesses are wanting. And because I now sit on the structures that I've mentioned to you, I talk their language. I brush
mm,
shoulders with them. We
mm,
sit in board
mm,
meetings and in council meetings. I'm driving various initiatives at an industry level, industry sector level. I drive these initiatives. And people already know, I just want to share maybe this little anecdote with you. Be
mhm,
careful of Rustem in meetings, right? Or in networking meetings in particular. Because if you're not careful, I knock into your shins or I drive over your toes. Okay. So they know that they gotta be cautious. And another thing that I say to them is that, of course, I'm in a wheelchair, so I'm at a low level. I tell the people that I
mm.
speak to, listen, before we speak, come down to my level, take a seat so they can be at my level. And this is the way how you interact with people, because business people and government people are people. They're like you and me.
Mm.
And once you get a conversation going, then things happen. Then people have respect for you. And once they have respect for you, they have respect for your message.
Amen to that. Amen to that. So the time is 13 minutes past 11. You are tuned into the Health and Awareness Show with Simfisile Mazibuko, and we are sitting, or talking rather, to Rustin from the Quadpara Association of South Africa, and he is talking to us about the benefits of training, skills development training, learnerships, and all of that good stuff. And all of the things that he mentioned, especially the last part, when he was answering the last question, is look at yourself as a PWD as an asset. You are an asset, you are a precious commodity, especially to businesses who want triple BEE points. So an asset is something that the organization needs not only to function, but to be able to run the environment efficiently. So essentially, the PWD community are assets to the economy, assets to employment, assets to the public and the private sector. And I love this. I am so, it's like I'm in school. I love it. Like, when you have that one teacher, when you go into their class and you are all ears. That is me with the Quadpara Association of South Africa. I can just never get enough of the conversations that we have with them. I wanted to ask also, where is the question? Can you share some examples of companies that are leading the way in disability employment?
Mm. So definitely there are great stories out there, right? And it's I wouldn't want to necessarily single anyone out, but I more want to
Mm,
speak about trends. If you look at the Commission on Employment Equity, right, that report that comes out annually shows on there that only 1% or 1.1%, I think was the last number, of persons with disabilities that are employed there. Now, I'm going to make a statement here, which some people will tell me I need to substantiate, but I really do believe that that number is far higher, because in some cases, are persons that are placed on learnerships measured in that particular statistic? I think not. And therefore, I think there are far more persons with disabilities that are actually engaged there. I think also that the support structures from the disability organizations, and may I just give a special shout out to QASA here, because our work readiness program at the Quadpara Association of South Africa is phenomenal. It was a program that was developed way ahead of its time. And today, if you look at businesses, they are asking, how do we get these people ready for work? And therefore, the Quadpara initiative and project is such a good project. And let me just mention one aspect that that project provides to their participants. They provide them with a laptop that they get to keep. Now, a
mm,
laptop together with a phone, I'd say a phone that can do WhatsApp. Okay, those
Mm,
two things equals a playing field in terms of how a person with disability can kind of get themselves out there. And there's this new technology called AI. So AI stands for artificial intelligence. I say it stands for Apple intelligence because I'm in the Apple ecosystem. But I've got another definition for AI. It's all about actual intelligence. We don't give
mm,
ourselves enough recognition as human beings, let alone human beings with disabilities, that we have actual intelligence. We need to use that. And I think from that should be how we go out there as persons with disabilities and go and pitch to the business world. You know,
mm.
go and say to the business world, this is what we are about, this is what we can do, and let us help you in terms of your inclusive employment strategies. And you know, that's the best way to do reasonable accommodation. You know, you can't tell a person with disability what you need. You got to listen to a person with disability as to what they need in terms of
Mm,
being able to be inclusive. So my absolute answer in terms of implementing inclusive employment strategies is to actually engage with businesses and show your value. And I think if you look at some of the takeaways that you can take out of today's presentation, or
mm.
radio show is that we spoke about it. You know, we spoke about triple BEE, we spoke about employment equity, we spoke about the opportunities that are out there. Latch onto those opportunities because they're there for the taking.
I love that. But you know, Rustin, I'm sad now
Mm,
because as I was talking to you, I'm like, yes, Rustin, yes. Until you mentioned Apple Intelligence.
mm.
Why Apple? I'm not an Apple fan. I love my Android, guys. I love my Android. Why Apple though?
So
I
so um yeah,
yes,
look, it doesn't matter on the tools, right? I
yes,
I am what
yes.
we call amplified. I love my apples. But it's about the technology. And in fact, Apple's my chosen hardware, and I
Yes.
work specifically in the Microsoft environment. And it's extremely frustrating, but exceptionally powerful.
Mm,
It's just my tools of trade. There's nothing wrong with Google. There's nothing wrong with Android.
mm,
So you know, it's what how you utilize the tools. That's why I want to
mm,
come back down and actually, to a certain extent, discount artificial intelligence and Apple intelligence and say to
mm,
persons, especially persons with disability, it's all about actual intelligence. Because a
mm,
sense of ours, one of our senses, is diminished, our other senses are stronger, our other abilities are
mm,
stronger, and that's driven
mm.
by actual intelligence. So it doesn't
Actually.
matter whether you got an Apple or whether you got an Android. I'm no worse than you that has an Android or
Mm,
vice versa.
mm,
It's
yes.
about the tools that we have and how we utilize
Mm.
those tools.
Mm. Oh no, this was just a joke. I'm always
Mm,
having this discussion with people to say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Please, can we have something that's just as catchy for Android?
sure.
So I love that you've spoken about actually the use of technology because again, another thing I would like to highlight about Skills Village is the fact that we are an online based radio station and most of our production team or presenting team are actually people with disabilities and they benefit from being able to work from home and the best way to work from home is to use that technology. So again, I am so glad for this collaboration because I
Mm,
feel like we speak the same language, but obviously quite para comes with so many
mm,
opportunities for our listeners and for the broader South Africa. So thank you for that. And just before I let you go, just one
mm.
last question I'd like to ask you. What initiatives or solutions or policies would you like to see implemented?
Okay, so I've got a broad view of that. South
Okay.
Africa is viewed by the outsiders, I'm talking about internationally, and us as well, that you know we are from the third world, right?
Mm,
We're
mm,
a third world country. We are developing, and maybe let me just change those words. We may be needy. We fight with each other. We corrupt, and all of those type of things. But the one thing that stands out for South Africans is our resilience. Right now, I want to give you examples of that resilience and take us back to the Springboks, right? The Springboks showed the world our level of resilience because we could win 3 must-win games with 1 point, right? We have to have had some level of resilience. If you look at our economy, we maybe not growing at more than 1% at the moment, but we're going to take our rightful place. Because when you have so much turmoil within a country, at some point in time, people are going to realize, why am I fighting with you? Why am I doing bad things to you? Why don't we rather just work together? Because if we work together, we're going to get further. Now, for me, that bodes even more so for persons with disabilities, right? We have already broken those barriers. Apartheid. Apartheid, unfortunately, still exists in disability for a very different reason. I'm in a wheelchair, you hearing impaired, someone else is visually impaired, and we get still categorized within those different categories. But you're starting to see today that the blind leads the deaf. Now the blind and the deaf, two disabilities, is very difficult to communicate. And that's what happens. I've got somebody that maybe walks on a crutch, right? They will push the wheelchair because the wheelchair is their crutch. And of course, they pushing me means that it helps me. So there's a lot of those type of things that is happening already. I think it's a mindset that is important of persons with disabilities and people in general, and then the innovation will come. Then the solutions will come. And already people are changing companies. If you want to talk about it more at a company level, they are changing their policies. It's happening. And they're changing it because it's a fixed bottom line. That's really what it's all about. If they do have this impact, it will make a difference.
As you speak, I actually just want to share this final anecdote with you before you have to love and leave us. With regards to the blind leading the deaf. Actually, between myself and the host of the show, the original host, Princess, she is a wheelchair user, but I'm visually impaired. So what happens is that because I'm visually impaired,
Mm,
she actually tells me, okay,
mm,
reach up, go to your left.
mm,
And
mm,
because I have mobility, I can reach up for what
mm,
she's asking
mm,
and she can
mm,
tell me what it is I'm looking
mm,
for. So when we travel, I love traveling with her because I'm like,
mm,
okay, I don't have to worry about bumps in the road because she's going to tell me, okay, there are
mm,
bumps. And especially when we go out to eat, I find
mm,
that restaurant menus are still typed in such small fonts
mm,
that I can just say, please tell me what's on the menu. And then
mm,
she reads the menu to me, and I'm like, oh, yes. I know technology can do that, but it's like you said with AI, it's actual intelligence. And it's so much better to have that human interaction
mm,
where she can actually explain the ingredients to you. And it's so much better as well. With the different linguistic things that we have in South
mm,
Africa where she can actually pronounce, oh, it's actually
mm,
Mugodu. Whereas if
mm,
I were to use artificial intelligence, maybe I wouldn't even understand because it mostly
mm.
uses phonetics. So
Yes.
yeah, it's really, it has touched me. So thank you
Mm,
very much. Thank you very much for joining us this
mm.
morning. I really enjoyed this conversation. You are listening to the Health and Awareness Show with me, Umanze Zulu Umunagaiwan, and we have just finished our chat with the Quad Para Association. Rustin, if people want to get a hold of the Quad Para Association, they get a hold of you?
I think the best is to go to the website, and also the it's I think it's QASA.co.za. And then of course Chadley, who is the person that works a lot with you, I'm sure you can share his details as well. But a Google
All right.
search will get you to the right people.
All right. Thank you so much for
Okay.
this
Thank.
informative chat. And yes, we will be with Kwatpara again next week with another amazing individual. But thank you so much, Rustin,
Thank
for your
you.
time this.
It's a pleasure. Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.